Welcome to Center of Light, all you beautiful, sexy human creatures. Good to see you, Keith Anthony Blanchard here. Center of Light, center of divine unfoldment and reinforcement. Strap off. Take the strap off. All you beautiful creatures, as we launch for inner space tonight, my guess is, make sure I get the last name correct. I like getting people's names correctly. Carole Obley. She said the O is long. We're going to be speaking about wisdom from the spirit world. I want to give a couple of announcements real quick. I am now in the process of recording my bestseller, Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, on audiobook. I have some fantastic audio technology, and I'm really excited about doing it. So today I sat down and let's do it. And I'm enjoying it. It's high dollar stuff, high quality input, output. Trash in, trash out, as they say in the studio world. I'm also, going to be pushing out really soon, Birthing a New Creation. Something that came to me the other night, I did a presentation on the Gospel of Thomas, and being open, things begin to seat itself. And so my new creation coming out soon, it's going to be of my own publication as of now, is this work. The Gospel of Yanava. What is Yanava? It's my spiritual name. Yah is the fire in the heart. It's God. It's the passion. It's the desire. It's the will. It's the pushing. It's the burning, the churning, the yearning. Na is the mind. Hopefully it's clear. And Va is the backbone. These three components are the essence, the primordial sacred self. When you align these three, things get really juicy really quick. So this is going to be coming out really soon. We're going to take some time now. I want to acknowledge everyone really quick that I can. I had some technology problems. I had to engage Facebook a different way, so it's not going to be spread. But I am going to repost this tomorrow for those who cannot or able to endure the entire interview with Carole. Hello, Lewis. Hello, Kelly. Hello, Len. Hello, everyone on YouTube land. Hello, everyone. Let's get down to our time with this beautiful lady who's going to light us up. I like being lit. Do you like being lit? It's called illumination. Let me tell you about my guest tonight. First, I do want to post this, which is helps me to eat. That's all I need to say. Doing what I do. I have one more thing to check. I'm so sorry. Everything's on point. There we go. Let me tell you about my guest tonight. Carole Obley, and we're going to be speaking about wisdom from the spirit world. Carole J. Obley is the author of Embracing the Ties That Bind, I'm Still With You, and Soul to Soul Connections. She has communicated with souls who have crossed into the spirit world through thousands. I love that word when it comes across. Thousands. Somebody's doing their work. Somebody's getting in there and making a difference. Through thousands of private and group sessions. She has earned a reputation in her geographical area as the real deal among psychic mediums. She travels nationally to speak and teach workshops, as well as maintaining a practice in mediumship based near Pittsburgh. I don't have her web address, but I will do that once we get going. Carole, welcome to Center of Light.
Hi, Keith. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Well, anyone that comes through Gavin Lee Davies, I think you know, was it you and I? Gavin is such a monumental player in lots of ways. I love Gavin.
So do I. He's a terrific author and publicist. And he has a cool accent.
Yeah, so all you people across the pond in the UK, don't get mad at me when I say this, but I'm going to be honest. Some of the dialects and the accents, I can't really find that place to receive it. It's kind of like German, or what's another one? New Zealand. Some of those don't really amalgamate with my energy so well. I guess it takes a lot of effort for me to listen to it. So what have you been doing, girl? Let me ask you this question. I always ask my guests, pretty much, three basic questions, but this one comes to mind for you. How did this all begin to happen with you? How did this unfoldment into this place of spirit? How did it all happen?
Well, I've been doing readings for about 25 years. I'm sure that I've done them. I had this same calling in prior incarnations. I'm pretty sure about that. And it really, I wasn't aware of my abilities until I was in my mid 30s. And I had a catastrophic event occur, and that was a fire. I was running a business and I had an electrical fire, and it burned me out of what I was doing. And I got a phone call from a friend, and she invited me to come to a metaphysical center in a small town that I live near. And I resisted that. That was probably about 30 or 35 years ago. And, from there, I started taking classes, and I really started with hands on healing, Reiki, the Japanese healing modality. And I was also highly trained in spiritual healing. And I did a decade of volunteer work of doing hands on healing with people. And from there, everything has just come together miraculously, as far as my pathway of helping people and being a medium.
Out of the 10,000 messages, experiences you had, what seems to be the resounding overall message that you receive through these sessions that you do?
The number one, I survived death. I did not die with my body. My consciousness goes on, and I am still with you. That's why I named my second book, I'm Still With You, because I heard myself saying that over and over in sessions to people. So that's probably the first. In this new book, Wisdom from the Spirit World, I talk about there are 10 primary lessons, and we probably won't get a chance to discuss all those, but one of them is the very first one is there is an afterlife. And it seems kind of silly, that that's a lesson, but indeed it is. And they want us to know, they want their loved ones here to know. And then there's universal messages too that have come through in these many, many thousands of readings that I've done. And I woke up one day, I know that you're a writer too, so there was 5 years in between Soul to Soul Connections, my third book, and this one. And I knew I was going to write another book. And I woke up, I had no idea what it was going to be about. And I thought, I've said everything I can say about mediumship. But lo and behold, I woke up 2 years ago, last July, and I had in my mind the message of what I needed to write about. And so I started with my outline, and it seemed to be imperative that I communicate these themes that have repeated through many, many readings so that people can really grasp, what is important, what is the higher perspective that those in spirit want to communicate to us.
When did the door open? People waiting in line to talk to you. What was that about? Was this after the fire and everything else?
Oh yeah, I mean it has taken me many, many years of development, in mediumship, and I'm kind of I kind of feel that part of my mission is to really preserve the integrity of the work, because there are some people out there who are calling themselves mediums, and I'll tell you, it really, really takes. I'm not trying to be a martyr here. I don't want anyone to misunderstand at all. But quite honestly, and I'm always honest in every interview and all my writings and all my readings, It takes many years to develop to the point where you have an attunement to be able to trust and have confidence in the communication and to be able to interpret it to a degree that it is bringing meaning, substance, and healing to those who receive it.
Would you say one of the biggest hurdles that exists for someone who's developing their own mediumship muscles is worrying about being right?
You are 100% spot on.
Right.
That is exactly right. I teach and I've taught for many years intuitive development. And then I also offer a webinar with mediumship development. I taught in the spring. I'm going to be teaching again in the winter time. But the number one obstacle that people have to overcome is lack of trust, because the rational brain that we need, we can't get rid of our rational brain, but we need it to navigate here. But it's always going to say to you, well, I think you're making this up. Is the
I agree.
perception really correct? And so it takes reading after reading after reading. And also, I've done a lot of training. I still do training, for myself. To this is a field that one cannot rest on their laurels. You always have to be improving and refining.
Would you say that's because everything is always expanding? So you always have to be in your best game to keep up with the cosmic system, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. And if I look at the readings I was doing in the early days and what I'm doing today, it's like day and night. There's such a world of difference between detail, and it really, detail in readings. And I work heavily with evidence in my readings, meaning names, memories, what the person passed from, things that only the communicating spirit and the sitter or the receiver would know. And that creates a deeper heart connection for that person. And so that's why it's so important, for me personally, to provide evidential mediumship.
I am wide open like you, but in a very different way. I can sit here and close my eyes and begin to pull in. For me, Carole, I'm using a measurement stick or a gradation only to make a point. For me, I can sit here and tap into Yeshua or Sai Baba or higher self or soul or this or that, like that. It just comes through, because when you meander around these levels, it all gets lost in the wash. It's all the same voice with a different personality. Somehow, mediumship seems to be literally the bridge between the earth and that, because there are those souls who have passed, who may not know they are dead, and those who might be still dwelling in a higher plane, yes, but not the absolute plane. I somehow bypass that. Not because I'm trying. I can't do what you do. Someone can say, okay, Keith, give me a reading. I can give you a reading and I can tell you things and this. And sometimes that stuff does come through. So I really love that you have this ability to play in that arena where so many people need healing, not the people who are deceased, but the people who are still selfishly on this side saying how much they miss their loved ones. Would you say that contacting your loved ones other than through mediumship is to simply begin the process of realizing that they're not dead, they're simply invisible, and they're in your auric field, because in the auric field is the light. So would you agree or say or support or counter that your loved ones are truly right by your side always?
Yes, that is true. And I also want to make a point to listeners that what I do, and anyone who is, a genuine conduit, and all of us, what we're doing is an expression of the divine within. It doesn't matter what form that takes. It doesn't matter what your subject matter is. It matters that you follow your soul's calling. So I consider my work above and beyond just giving messages, from deceased loved ones. A really good reading and really anything that you're doing should provide service. It should provide, an upliftment, guidance, direction, and the philosophy of harmonious living. And because that's the way that higher source energy works, is in harmony. And right now in collective consciousness, we're seeing a lot of disharmony. And hopefully, through that, we're going to find our unity. Unfortunately, we're a stubborn lot. We we usually don't wake up until there's some kind of suffering, that we go through. So mediumship should also provide more than just the messages, from deceased loved ones. It should also communicate guidance and the assurance of the eternity and the majesty of the soul.
The assurance of the majesty in the soul. I interviewed someone years ago. Oh my God, his name slips me. John Robinson. He was really into the art of dying gracefully, and he says that death doesn't happen at the last moment when you think it does. You gradationally die, provided you're just not in a car wreck, but you die every day. You and I were speaking in the green room about how we live our passion. Would you say that someone who begins to live their passion ongoingly as much as they can until they do it so much they can leave the old world behind and let it die, would you say they become in alignment with such harmony that puts them in such a space to where they can get higher information, things of such?
Yes, and I'm very genuine about what I've seen. I've been blessed, and I treasure mediumship like the precious gift that it is, and I use it very responsibly. But I have seen through many sessions where people who left under troubled circumstances, say, for example, someone who took their own life, and I've done many readings for, people who have lost loved ones to suicide. There is a healing that happens, and there's a transformation that happens to really elevate the consciousness of that soul on the other side. And it doesn't mean that we release everything that happens here, because, as natural law states, we're always responsible for everything that we do. So, there is a transformation that occurs, and a seeking of the light that was kind of blocked from the person who left here by actions and choices that they made in their own life. And we always have to indicate the desire to transcend that.
No matter what you or I or anyone other of the like will say about karma, people will understand it, but they won't let it be. No one wants to own, allow, strangely appreciate that someone they care about left because of their own unconscious doing, something they didn't realize they were gravitating toward themselves that would cause them to exit into the spirit world. I mean, a parent who lost a child, how do you, so all this. So speaking about karmic lessons, and it doesn't change for anyone. It has no prejudice whatsoever. Can you tell me about soul maps and karmic lessons?
Yeah, well, I spend in the first section of wisdom, I spend 2 chapters on that, about how we plan. Now, I'm speaking now on a soul level, not on a rational conscious level, but how we plan what we're going to learn when we come here, when we're going to come into the physical realm, those are called the Akashic Files. There's a whole chapter in the book on the Akashic Files. They're the same thing as the Akashic Records. And what they consist of is everything that the soul has planned from the beginning of time and done and said and thought. That's all in the Akashic Files. And so soul maps are really kind of the implant of that remembrance into our soul, when we incarnate. And when the time is right, we're going to have those lessons. I also write about soul agreements, by the way, and those are made between two or more souls. So those are part of the Akashic File as well. And when we're meant to meet up with that other soul that we have the agreement with, that person will be magnetically drawn to us. So there's always evolution going on. We are constantly expanding, growing, evolving. That never stops. And it certainly does not stop when we die, when we leave this physical vehicle behind. We continue to learn and grow and evolve in the spirit world as well. I can't tell you how many readings I've done that I have seen people come through and say, I'm teaching over here. And the sitter will say, oh, that's really interesting. He used to teach when he was here, or I'm doing healing work over here, or I'm working with young people. So we can continue on with the work that we were doing here in the spirit world as well.
Carole, would you announce your website? Because I can't seem to find it. It's not under your name, so it's under some psychic name, I'm assuming. Would you announce what that is so I can find it and begin to post this so our people can find you and stomp all over your page and let you know they exist?
Yeah, it's Soul Visions, that's plural, soul plus visions.net, soulvisions.net. And my Facebook is facebook.com/soul medium, SOUL plus the word medium.
When it comes to soul contracts, does it play out exactly, or is there any wiggle room? All right.
That's a great question.
Thank you. I have my moments.
I don't call them contracts in my in all of my books. I call them blueprints, because what they really are is a design for living that the soul plans before coming into the physical realm. So, and they consist of different qualities. I call them soul qualities that our soul needs more experience with. For example, compassion, and that can be met in many different ways. I could choose to perhaps be born into a family that treats me horribly. And I have the choice to learn about compassion, and also forgiveness would be another example. I have the choice to learn those qualities, by overcoming those circumstances, those dire circumstances that I came in with. Or perhaps I could work with animals. I could volunteer at an animal shelter. I could work with the elderly. I could work with abused children. I could do counseling. So yes, there's many different ways. There is a lot of wiggle room because we always have the gift of free will from God.
I liken that to, if we can imagine the difference between free will and destiny. There's a train from New York going to California. You can take different routes. You can get on this train or that train. Regardless, the train is going to California. Would that be somewhat considered such wiggle room to be able to, there's a momentum of force behind us that's always pushing towards our higher good. So we're always going to end up to that place. Now, time has a great factor or element in this arrival, if you will. But would that be a likely metaphor that we can get from New York to California? We are definitely going to get to California, but we can have alternate routes here and there.
Yes, that's a good analogy. all paths lead to oneness. And when I say oneness, I don't mean sort of the new agey type of concept of oneness. I mean the one creator. And it's interesting because people who and there's an example in this new book of a woman that I read for, and her partner, her husband, had died very suddenly, just massive heart attack. And he had always been an atheist. And when he came through, he showed me this big stack of books. And she said, oh, yes, he was always reading and, he was very intelligent and all of this. And I said, he comes across to me as somewhat like he was extremely rational and he didn't believe in the afterlife. And she said, that's exactly right. And I said, well, he's saying now that he was wrong.
Does now.
And yeah, and I can tell you there have been other readings like that in which people have come through, and even people who were very religiously oriented that were told, that communication with the spirit world is wrong or evil or, whatever. They have communicated as well. So once, we get over there, we see this great expansive energy that we are. We're this unlimited being. But when we come into physical form, we forget that. And we go through what Edgar Cayce, the famous American psychic, called the veil of forgetfulness. And so we have these things, and I write in the books about this too. They're wake-up calls. Wake-up calls are things that return us to our soul's brilliancy. And sometimes they're painful. It really depends on how we use it. But everything that happens like that is also an opportunity. And I write about windows of opportunity. And those are those instances of awakening that every person sooner or later has.
Here is a $64,000 question. When this all began to really integrate, did you have to shut the door to say, y'all all need to quit speaking at one time? I mean, do you still walk out in public and just get draped with conversations happening in your experience? Or you've now the level of, I'm assuming that you have been doing this so long, but was there a time for you to where everybody just wanted to chatter in your ear, knowing that you are accepting phone calls?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because in the popular mind, I think people have gotten kind of a distorted view of mediumship from television and from the reality shows. The ones that walk into a grocery store or, go through a drive-through window and they're seeing people's deceased loved ones around them. That's really not the way it is. And I think it's a reality show. That's why they're doing it. And if I wanted to do that, I could probably do it, but we're not meant to do that. We have to be in this physical body and in this world. And it's very important, anyone who's doing any sort of spiritual work, to maintain balance and, walk around, go out into nature, read, enjoy time with friends. But I understand what you're saying. But I will tell you that many mediums, and some even the famous mediums, will tell you a good medium should know how to turn it off. You have to flip that switch off, or you could lose your mind.
Exactly. A lot of my work recently in the past has been about the lesson, the beautiful lesson, the gift, the grace of forgiveness. What do we think all these monks are doing in these Himalayan caves? They're moving into forgiveness. They're forgiving themselves. They're forgiving other people. They're forgiving other people that have nothing directly to do with themselves. They're going into the cave of samadhi, unity with God. And they're going through this amazing forgiveness process to help elevate and lift the world as they contribute by contributing to the betterment of themselves. Let's talk about forgiveness and what value that really, really has in the spiritual development.
Well, that's one of my favorite topics because I wrote a lot about that, and it's that's actually one of the lessons. And the spirit world has come through so many times in sessions and talk about the cornerstone. I call it the cornerstone of healing, and that is forgiveness. And I think that people misunderstand it in falsely believing that it means that we're kind of okaying what someone has done to us, if someone hurt us, abused us, gossiped about us, whatever it might be. And there's also self forgiveness. I've struggled with that a lot too, because I had kind of a wild earlier life when I was in my teens and 20s. But the real meaning of forgiveness in a spiritual sense is a release of the past. And it means to realize that what we have, what you have, what I have, what someone on the street, what the president had, anybody you can name, we have right now. That's what we have in common. We don't have the past. We don't have the future. We have this moment. And so forgiveness is a conscious decision to release what has gone before this particular moment that we're in.
That is absolutely so perfectly said. I loved when you pegged it, because that's what you did. You pegged it. We think forgiveness is kind of being okay with someone supposedly has done. It's deeper than that, because there are roots from this weed that it will grab hold of you and it will never let go. The mind will never let you go unless you know how to move through the mind. The monkey wants his banana. He wants his banana. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah, ooh, ooh. He wants his banana. And so one way we can alleviate, not bypass, you can't bypass the monkey. You have to move through it. You have to move above the ceiling of the thoughts from the monkey, from our past, and the memories, those hurts, those things that we feel wounded by. And the things that we feel wounded by are those things that don't go according to our expectations of what we expect from other people. That being said, we move into the arena of unconditional love, the bond of love, and the eternal fact that we can never die. Tell me about that.
Yes, thank you, Keith. That's another lesson, and the bond of love is eternal. That comes through in every single session that I've done, and the healing power of knowing that love can never be destroyed, that death and no matter what happens to us can destroy that core of not only our relationships with others, but who we are at our very core, because that's who we really are, because we contain the essence of spirit, and that's my word for God with a capital S. And that can never be destroyed. To me, that is such a comforting, uplifting reassurance to truly know that. And I don't mean know it intellectually, but know it within our heart. And so really knowing that we're going to see in the case of loved ones, we're going to see them again. We're going to be with them again. We can be with them now.
Yeah, right.
Because, communication is through energy, and it's through the soul. So we all have that ability. I am constantly reminding people that it's good to have a reading, but you also can connect through that bond of love. And I'm not saying everybody will, is going on and being a medium, but that every human being has the ability to, connect with their own soul, and usually through meditation and stillness, mindfulness. That's another thing I spent a lot of time writing about in this particular book. But every human being has that direct link to higher source.
I miss my deceased loved ones. physically. I don't miss them emotionally. I don't. Because I am the product of those people who many people would say I've lost. I have not lost my loved ones. My love for my loved ones is eternal, as we had just spoken about. So I don't feel that missing, though I would love to kiss my mom on the face again. I don't miss her. She is so present with me. I can just simply fall inside and think of her, and she's simply there for me. You talk about the power of choice. In fact, you dedicate an entire chapter to that, and how it affects and shapes our reality. The power of choice. Carole, I want to share something with you, and I would like you to either support or as you wish. This one thing about the power of choice. Most people think the power of choice means this or that. And that's the full spectrum of what you have to choose, the this one or the that one. When the truth is, the question I pose is, who is this being that finds itself faced with a choice? That would be the third component. That third component is the one that is eternal. Would that be correct, as you were describing that part of us, that essence, that being? So let's basically just talk about the power of choice. How does one go about choosing the higher modality?
Well, that is one of the lessons that the spirit world has brought through in countless sessions. And what it really means is that we always have at our disposal, the ability to make a decision about life. Things happening around us, we can choose to act or we can choose to react. Now, this thing called the ego, of which the personality is an extension of the ego. By the way, I never demonize the ego. It's absolutely essential to have an ego.
Thank you.
But it tends to see things in black and white. It tends to see good and bad. It's a product of the duality of this plane that you and I are on right now. And so we can make a choice from our higher self or from the soul aspect of self, which is always communicating to us. We just need to put up our antenna and listen to it. Or we can make a choice from the personality level or the egoic level. Now, again, I'm not saying that making a choice from the egoic level is always the wrong choice. Sometimes we have to look at things and act in a very practical nature. But I think, and I'm putting myself right here in this basket too of, sometimes I'm really making a choice from what Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, calls the pain body. The pain body is that collection of our past that is still there, that the ego will bring up and say, but look at this, you need to look at this. And aren't you angry about that? Or aren't you hurt because of that? And so, and it's very insidious in that, sometimes it'll just strike. I don't know about you, but with me, it's kind of like that serpent that comes out. It's like, whoa, where did that come from? So I'm very honest when I talk about this stuff. And you're not going to get rid of the ego. You can choose. The power of choice is a bit of detachment, if you will, becoming the observer. You've heard these terms, and I'm sure a lot in your audience have heard those terms. In that, mindfulness enables us to become the observer and to disidentify with those the egoic thoughts. And that unto itself is a choice. I have the choice to listen to that, or I have the choice to pull back from it, take a moment and say, okay, I'm going to choose to not react to that. And that's always available in every moment that we exist.
I love it. I love that you are dwelling in the arena that the ego has a very, very, in fact, it is the divine purpose, probably erroneously seen as it's very divine. In fact, it's because this such reflection of what we think we're not, sometimes what we think we are. Because of it, we find our true self. And like you said, you can never get rid of the ego. Most people, even spiritualists, even spiritual teachers, they will tell you, destroy the ego, smite the ego, bring in your God will hammer and smite the ego. But you what happens is you can't reach the absolute, the majesty of all things until we understand and reach the understanding of the small puny self. So if you destroy or try to destroy the small puny self by overshooting and shortcutting to that which is higher, you can never do it because, you're here now. I am here now. And sometimes I need to stand up and say, you need to be quiet. You're aggravating or whatever, how I feel. Don't take it personal. I'm whatever, and so forth and so on. But we have to take care of the matters that are here on the earth before we can ever use that as a stepping stone to walk higher. Yes?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think there are too many people who have gotten the idea that it's not, quote, spiritual to be angry. It's not spiritual to be jealous or afraid or whatever it might be, what we consider the negative, quote, negative, emotions. But it doesn't do you any good to ignore those or to suppress them. And I never advise people to suppress emotions or suppress, what they're feeling. You have to walk through that in order to transcend it.
Let me interrupt you and ask you this question because this is very, very important. At least I think. I get it. Never suppress emotions. Okay, so let's look at that honestly. Never suppress emotions. Never. Okay. Now that we understand that, we're going to put that on the shelf where it belongs with an accolade and award. I will never suppress my emotions. But when does this become self-induced, erroneous, unconscious? Call it for what it is, nonsense, because there's no sense to be found in it. In other words, how long does a person licensed, of course, as long as they want, to do such things to where it becomes just simply self-inflicted abuse?
Well, you're exactly right. What happens is it's the point is that we have to experience everything. We've come here in a three-dimensional world to experience everything that's here. Otherwise, we would be still in the spirit world. So that's why I say about not suppressing. However, the point is to not get stuck in those. So you can observe, I'm really upset right now. I'm really sad. I'm really angry. I'm feeling defeated, whatever it might be. And that's okay to become then the observer. And the point is to not get stuck in that. And I think being stuck in that is what creates suffering. Now, suffering, in the Buddhist philosophy,
Thank you.
is the way that we awaken, right? So when we come here, the Buddha said that the nature of life is suffering, and so we that's kind of that's a human condition. So is grief. We're all going to lose somebody someday that we love, and
I've never associated grief in the same playing field as suffering, but it is exactly that, because grief is it's an okay way that we allow ourselves a license, at least for a little while, to suffer. Mm-hmm. Suffering is self-induced. Pain, you stub your foot on a piece of furniture, break your toe, that's pain. Suffering is going, hey, y'all, listen to me. Last night, I stubbed my foot on a piece of furniture, and it's continuing the ongoing thing that's causing pain. So I just dropped into my consciousness. Suffering is the aftermath of turning pain within itself, inducing the same pain in a form of simply remembering something that didn't feel so well.
Exactly. And yeah, there is a distinction between the two. And we all know people, and I put myself in this when I was young. I kept creating suffering for myself. Suffering is always self-created. We always have control over whether we're going to suffer or not. So yeah, the point is about this whole thing is to not suppress who you are, certainly not your personality, certainly not your emotions, but to pull back from them so that you don't become those. And there's a huge difference. As soon as I identify with anything, I don't care what it is, I have automatically gone into my ego because, and again, I'm a student of Tolle, where he says, try walking out in nature and, don't name anything that you see. Just observe,
Yes.
just
Yes.
hear the birds singing,
Yes.
smell the fragrances, feel the earth under your feet without thinking, without naming, or trying to put a label on something. And because then we automatically will slip into the ego, and that becomes then very limited. So that's the point that I really wanted to get across to readers with that. And again, it's not about getting rid of any of these things. It's living with them and learning and growing through them.
So even in these things, we feel wounded. And in our wounds, does that diminish our light?
And you're referring to that's another one of the lessons. And thank you, because I don't have my own book in front of me. So I I'm grateful
I'm
for
guilty in
your
my I'm guilty
introductions.
in my innocence.
And you're a very good host. So yeah, our wounds do not diminish the light within. We are not our past. We are not um, we are not anything that has happened to us. It's not going to, it has no power over us to limit or define us, whatever the event might be. I don't care how catastrophic it is, how painful it is, how traumatic it might be. It really only has the power that we give it. And that's why I titled that chapter, Our Wounds Do Not Diminish the Light Within, because the light within, as you know, is the divine light. And as such, it is inexhaustible and it can never be extinguished. So we can have things that happen to us, but they don't define, they can only define us if we identify with them. For example, someone who walks through life being a victim, victimhood, I write about victimhood as well. That's a very dangerous label to take on, because what you're allowing to happen is you're allowing your past to define you, when really you have the power to reinvent yourself in every moment. And in no way by saying that do I mean to um, diminish anyone's suffering, or no disrespect at all. But the power of choice, and the lessons kind of blend into one another. The power of choice is, are we going to allow the wound to diminish our light? And that's totally up to us. But the truth is that there's always an opportunity within every wound. And what did Rumi say? The wound is the place where the light enters. And I love that quote.
Yeah.
Um, so it's always up to us what we do.
The laws in the universe, they will never change for anyone. No one is so special that the laws in the universe will change. Does the universe handle with kid gloves? Absolutely does. It lifts you, supports you, cradles you. But when it comes to the level of for your own good, It's tough. It's rough. It doesn't budge. Karma doesn't change. Karma follows you around like a shadow. It's the overseer of time, and it never forgets. So, in this level of playing with consciousness, Carole, how can you advise, or what would you offer for people who are trying to at least get to the next level? Because sometimes life can be, it can beat you down. And of course, it's the choices that we make that brings about the experience and so forth. So what would you offer? Any meditation, any particular application of a spiritual technique that they can begin to recognize? Oh my God, one, recognize themselves and understand that this is something they can do to change their vibration and their experience. Because a lot of people in my immediate social media proximity are dealing with such things, and they're looking for some level of just relief. They want to at least grab a breath of fresh air. Any ideas, dear?
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going through that. And one of the things I wrote about in the book that it was very personal to me, and it was difficult to write about. A couple of years ago, I went through a severe bout of anxiety. And from when I was a young child, I suffered from panic attacks and also anxiety. And this bout that I had a couple of years ago was so severe. I sought out counseling and medication and so forth. But I also entered onto a program of 8 weeks with mindful meditation. And I did it. I read the entire book and I did all the meditations daily. What mindfulness does, it's very simple. It doesn't cost any money. You can do it at home. You can do it wherever you're at. Don't close your eyes if you're driving, but in your home or even outdoors or wherever. You simply close your eyes. You allow the vehicle of your own breath to pull you into presence, which is right here, right now. And in that stillness, you can feel yourself pulling back. If you want to use the imagery of lying on your back on a nice summer day and you look up and you see those big white fluffy cumulus clouds passing overhead, and you're lying there and you're just observing them. You can use that analogy, for in your meditation. That those clouds are your thoughts, and so you're just looking at them, you're noticing them, but you're not lassoing them and pulling them down. Another analogy to use, another meditation in mindfulness. You're sitting on a beach. You're looking out at the waves. They're coming in. They're going out. Those are your thoughts. Now, if you get up from the beach and you go and immerse yourself in the water, in those thoughts, then you're going to get
You made a
wet.
choice. You made a choice.
You're going to immerse yourself you talked about the endless loop, and that is true. It's an addictive, thinking can become highly addictive. And I mean that in the true sense of the word addiction, because it's just an endless loop and it keeps building. But if you stay on that beach and you just look out at those waves and you say, okay, there's the waves, they're coming in, they're going out. They're not touching me though. They really are not real. They're simply arising and then they're receding. And those are simple imageries that people can do anywhere. Children can do these. And I will tell you that mindfulness has changed the fabric of my life. And, I do meditation before every reading, just a very brief, minute or so, just to make my slate clean. And personally, it has really helped with anxiety.
We have talked about earlier in the green room that we do what we love. And when we do what we love is synonymous with eternity, where there's no time. And because you and I are doing what we love, we're at the end of the show. It just passed by like that, didn't it, dear?
It did.
Right?
And you're so easy to talk with. Thank you so much.
But before we go, would you offer your favorite, your most powerful remove the labels, a love nugget to the audience, something you feel is important, something that you can drop into their pocket. So when they're not thinking about it, they're scrounging around in their pocket, they can go, oh, wow, what's this? And they can look at it and go, oh, I can use this now. What would be something you like to offer the listening audience that they can do to not only make contact with loved ones like you, like me, and so forth and so on, but to make contact with the self that they long lost that love? Any ideas, dear?
Well, I think it's what I found in myself through the trials and tribulations of my own life, and that is that light within me, and that is within you. That is within you. Nobody can give that to you, and no one can take it away. It's yours and yours alone, and it never goes out. Think of that candle burning within you that is never extinguished. And believe me that you will find it if you seek it.
I was doing some social media stuff. Carole, thank you. Everyone is just like really enjoying your presence. Keep us posted on what's happening with you in the future. Before we go, what's happening with you in the future? Even though it's not real, what's happening with you in the future?
Oh, well, I have some plans to. I'm going to be teaching actually this month, September 22nd, and it's on my Facebook page. I'm going to be teaching the Akashic Files. It will be a live webinar, and tuition is very affordable. And then I'll also be teaching 6 weeks of intensive mediumship training through Zoom, and you'll also get personal access to me for personal mentoring through email. So I'll be offering webinars, and of course, I'm always doing phone readings. I read for people all over the United States, out of the country. I've connected with probably about every state in our nation here, as well as other countries. I've even worked with interpreters, so it's kind of cool. But everybody is the same, they all want to know what lies beyond here, and they all want to know the power and integrity of spirit.
Thank you for your time, your
Thank you.
presence. If you can, stick around. I got 30 seconds before I get out of here. I'd love to chat with you in the backstage, if you will. Keith Anthony Blanchard here, hanging out with Carole Obley, and we've been speaking about wisdom from the spirit world. What a phenomenal interview. What do you think happens when you die?
That
Well,
was
one, I'm
that
sorry,
was
go
a
ahead. Go
really
ahead.
good interview. Yes.
Thank
And
you.
Keith, will you send me the link to this when it's up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 For sure.
You asked me what happens when we die?
No, I was just signing off of the show, but by all means, go ahead.
Oh, no. That would
No,
take a
lay it into us. Give us
yeah,
at least a
that
paragraph. Give us
would
a
take
paragraph.
a long time.
So we'll do a part two.
I would love to do a part two.
Love it.
Yeah. You're I don't know how long you've been at this. And by the
10
way,
years.
you're very practiced. You're very good.
Thank you.
You're a natural. When you were speaking, I couldn't help but tune in. I felt very strongly that you had a mom in the spirit world.
I knew you were going to pick up on it.
And
And in fact, before we talked, I knew you were.
she is so proud of you.
Mm,
And do you resemble her
very
physically?
much
Because
physically.
I feel like if
Yes.
you put her side by side with you, what I feel is that you're very similar in the way you look.
We are.
Yeah, yeah,
No doubt I'm her son.
yeah. And I feel her to have been a very nurturing person, very kind. And was she really religious or spiritual?
Earlier on, yes. And
Hmm.
then I honestly believe my mother's religion slash spirituality simply became her family. So it was no longer about the doctrine. It was about becoming the living word. And that was definitely my mother.
Hmm. Beautiful soul. When you were speaking, and I didn't want to tune out because I have to pay attention to what you were asking. But I was very aware of her standing behind you. Yeah. Yeah. She's
Yeah,
very, she's
I
really
feel no
talkative.
disconnect with my mother. I don't. I don't. I am, in fact, my life lessons beautifully are from my mother. I grew up Catholic, South Louisiana, old world discipline. So my beautiful life lessons came through my mother. My
Mhm.
lessons of beautiful forgiveness, my lessons of beautiful lessons and learning, and simply just my mother loving me in return. So yeah, that's my mom for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. And was there anything else that you wanted to ask about?
I could say yes, but thank you. I'm good. I'm so happy, but maybe next show, hopefully everyone listening on this, Carol and I have been speaking about the possibility of doing readings. Carol had mentioned to me she loves doing readings. Asked her why she loves her job or play. But we're not so fanciful on people who just look for hashtags to get readings. It kind of desecrates and soils. Carol, I'll be chatting with you soon. Hang around if you can. It sort of desecrates and soils the beautiful and the blessed and the sacredness of someone with gifts, myself, yourself, and doing what you do. You don't want people stomping all over that and just trying to milk and wring the rag for everything it has. It doesn't go anywhere except deeper into nonsense. It's just not important. It loses its luster. So I'm going to be back really soon. I have another guest coming next Tuesday. It's my next presentation, my next interview. I did pose the question, and Carol lovingly chimed in about what happens till we die. No matter if I tell you, no matter if Carol tells you, it doesn't matter. You have to find out for yourself, because anyone is just painting ideas in words. Because no matter what words and ideas Carol or I or anyone else can ever paint to you, it will never convey nor reveal the actual package you deserve. Believing otherwise, you will always swerve on the road if you don't follow the code. Trust me when I tell you. You are loved beyond measure. You are the light. The light doesn't live in you, nor were you ever born. You are the light and you are eternal. Take that in. That's etched on your heart. Be that, live that, affirm that. Become the prophecy, the living testament. Yanava, it is complete.